Welcome, dear friends at Cardiac Radio. We are here to nourish our souls together. Cardiac Radio is here with you at 11 p.m. live. Though we have our programs 24/7 and several live programs during the week. Our hosts kindly share the teachings of Spiritism, and we invite you today to a new series. This series is about this book, Jesus in the Home, by the Spirit Neio Lucio, through Chico Xavier. Who is the Spirit author? When you read Emmanuel's novels, especially 50 years later, you're going to find a character, and it's not a character, it's actually a spirit incarnated at a time named Neio Lucio, or Neio Lucio. He is the grandfather of the main character in the book, Celia, a wonderful heart. And in the afterlife, he came to Chico Xavier and brought, besides other books, this book, Jesus in the Home. And this book is important because it teaches us about stories that can coach us to greater emotional and spiritual intelligence. We are living at a time on earth in which everything is so critical. We need to be fully aware. As Emmanuel said in one of his books, Let Us Stay Awake. This book really keeps us awake. But there's another aspect. As a neuroscientist and a psychologist, I've studied books about the emotional body language of Jesus. And in this one, we're going to find the non-verbal lessons of Jesus. It's beyond words. His attitude, his approach, and of course, the parables. And that's what we're going to share here with you. Okay? So welcome, friends. Let us feel this moment together as our connection with the Master, the Governor of the planet, kindly asking to balance ourselves, to recharge us, to envelop all of us and our families, everyone who is connected. And we may share this with everyone who is in greater need than ourselves. And so be it. You ready? Welcome. I see beautiful friends. Debbie Oliveira, welcome, Debbie. Renata and Maxi, how are you? Jailton, welcome. Renata Conceição, how are you? Carol Correia, how are you? Adilson, welcome. Karina Alice, what a joy. Sunshine, welcome, Sunshine. Andrea Torres, welcome. Sol Souza, Paula, how are you? Sandra, how are you, Sandra? Nora Brasil, welcome, welcome. Ready? You know, in each and every chapter, there is an interaction with Jesus and the disciples and other people and a story. But we're going to begin from chapter 1. Why? Because we're going to listen from the Master, the very words that we need, and feel his presence. But I will read. The chapters are short. I'm not going to read it all, but excerpts, okay? To make us feel better. Right, Lisa Teles? Welcome. Let us go. The description, visualize it. The firmament was full of stars on a night of silvery moonlight, when the Lord, staying at Peter's house for the time being, picked up the sacred writings as if he wanted to set the conversation on a new course after it had become rather unproductive and unedifying. He asked kindly, so stop for a moment before we listen to his words. Observe his teaching without words. First, he was staying at Peter's house temporarily. He didn't stay there for years on end, for some time. Two, he picked up the sacred writings. And this is interesting because think about this, the relevance of the description. He's a master. He's the expected Messiah. He knows what nobody else knows. And yet, he picks up the sacred writings and goes from there. What is the lesson he's teaching us? It's humility and teamwork effort. He could have picked up none of the sacred writings as saying, what I'm going to teach you, nobody taught you. We don't need the scriptures any longer. You see, a lesson, unspoken lesson on the value of teamwork and humility. And as if he wanted to start a conversation, give a new course because the conversation was not productive and edifying, so he took action with kindness to change and make it more uplifting. Isn't that true that usually we get together and start talking? It's pretty hard. So what do? Next time you're amongst people and you feel the conversation goes nowhere, open a book, a good book. Read a message, if not for others, for yourself, so you can recharge. I bet you do the same. I keep one of these small spiritist books in my purse, so whenever I need, wherever I am, if not in the cell phone, you can read without people noticing messages that can uplift us. Right, Lea Severo and Lívia Moraes, Sandra Phillips, how are you? Amanda Andrade. So, what did he say kindly? He talks to Peter and says, Simon, what does the fisherman do before he goes to the market with the day's catch? The disciple thought for a moment and answered somewhat in hesitation. Well, of course, Master, he chooses the best fish. No one would buy the others. Jesus then smiled and asked another question. Visualize it. You think of Jesus as like somebody who's always stern. No, he's speaking with kindness. He's smiling. Visualize this master in these descriptions. Is completely different from the master people think elsewhere. Kind and smiling. And the potter, what does he do when he wants to make a piece? And then Peter answered, obviously, Lord, he molds the clay and gives it the forms he wants. Now observe Jesus' body language with a kind-hearted and piercing look. Visualize it. With kind-hearted and piercing look, the heavenly friend pressed the matter. So now we know the tone of voice was kind. We know that he was smiling, but his look was firm and loving. So now we have almost like he's portrayed in front of us. The tone of voice, the smile, and the loving and firm look. What does the carpenter do to accomplish the project he proposes? Simon answered very simply, without hesitating. He plans on the wood, and he planes the wood, and then he uses the adze, the saw, the hammer, the chisel. Otherwise, he could not shape the unformed piece. Jesus didn't say anything for a few moments. and then explained. Another lesson. Why is Neio Lucio describing this? So we have the whole picture and the nonverbal lessons of Jesus. It's what we call the emotional body language. He's teaching without words, and you and I are being called to be guided in those lessons. Sometimes people say things and we think it's so smart to keep on saying and saying and saying on top of one another. Sometimes even talking over each other, right? But then here, Jesus didn't say anything for a few moments. He uses silence for reflection of the other person. An educational way of using silence. Pause. So you give room to make the next teaching formable. It's like you're preparing for the sowing. Silence in psychoanalysis, when we study the analysis of discourse through Jacques Lacan. Jacques Lacan is one of the psychologists that observed that in between our words, including silence, there is a lot of meaning. And when we have that consciousness, we can use it more properly, and that's what we call emotional intelligence. So Jesus knew how to use silence in appropriate moments. This one he's using for an educational purpose, because what comes next is an explanation, says Neio Lucio. Jesus didn't say anything for a few moments and then explained. This may also be said of the home. The home is the first school and the temple of the soul. The home is the true exporter of individuals for community life. If the merchant selects his merchandise, if the shipbuilder cannot build a boat without shaping the wood according to plan, how can one hope for a safe and peaceful community unless the home becomes a better place? World peace begins under the roof that shelters us. If we can't learn to live in peace within our four walls, how can nations expect to coexist in harmony? If we can't love the brother or sister right next to us, and who is involved with us in our daily struggle, how can we revere the eternal Father who seems so far away? Pause. He said so much. Our home is a school and is a temple for our souls. But is your home a school for you? A temple? You know, there was a day in my house I was receiving family from Brazil. They came home and started talking a lot about politics and a lot about many things that were really unusual for us. And then at some point I approached this family member and said, look, I understand that you're used to talking about this in your house, but in our house, we don't. Our house is like a spiritist center. We don't watch TV unless we select programs that are beneficial to us. And we don't talk about these things here. I apologize, but it's not gonna work here. I know it may be annoying to say this, but in that case, I was also trying to benefit the person who was working, who was staying here. And it helped, because after a few weeks, when the person went back to their home, they said, wow, I don't know. I've never lived that way. And in a way, that's how my grandparents taught me to. Whenever I was in their house, it was always peaceful. It was always very harmonious. Not that we have already conquered it, but it's a constant goal to make our home a sacred haven. That's what Jesus is saying, and that's what you should try to do. Select what you speak in your house. Select what you watch in your house. Select what you do. If you do things that are iffy, that are not truly spiritual and nourishing, there are many people who say, but it's my house, I do what I like. Okay, but for every action there is a reaction. For every action there is a connection. And it's up to you what kinds of spirits you want to attract to your house. And to attract better spirits, we really need to not only to watch and pray, but also to use that space to help others. So it's up to us. That's Jesus' recommendation. He says clearly here that world peace begins under the roof that shelters us. The home is the true exporter of individuals for community life. Parents, parents, parents. It is in our house that we model what we want to send to the world. No matter what we say, our home is not the place to be hectic, to be abusive, to be aggressive. Because we are in our house, we can do what we like. In our house, we cherish the divine in us. That's why it's a temple of the soul. But Vanessa, that's not possible. It is. Habits can be created over time, one step at a time. Everything in nature is gradual. So it's for us to find that opportunity to achieve that goal that Jesus is proposing. Now back to Jesus. Neio Lucio describes, Jesus glanced around the humble room, paused briefly, and continued. So visualize he's speaking, then he looks around, pause for a moment. He's teaching us how to talk. Neio Lucio in this book is describing Jesus' nonverbal lessons also as means to teach us how to build up that harmonious environment and edifying conversations. Peter, said Jesus, we need to shine a light for all who might seek our fraternal assistance. In our house, the table is the place for our bread. On it, you receive from the Lord the food you need each day. Around it, why not plant the seeds of happiness and peace in conversation and thought? The Father, who by way of the soil provides wheat for our storehouse, sends us light by way of heaven. Just as sunlight is the diffusion of the rays that comprise it, abundance begins with a grain of seed. That is why the gospel did not begin amongst the crowds, but rather in the simple abode of shepherds and animals. Many people are conflicted about this. They talk about 10,000 things at their table, but they bring friends in, they never pray. They are afraid of talking beautiful things, and we think that to be in these unsettling conversations is just the way to fit in. No wonder Jesus says that it takes courage for us to really follow his steps. Simon Peter gazed at the Master with humble, lucid eyes, and since he could not find the right words to explain himself, he murmured meekly, "Master, may it be as you desire." Then, inviting the disciples' family to join him for an edifying talk and uplifting meditation, Jesus unrolled the writings of wisdom and started the world's first Christian home worship service. Pause. Go back. Again, we're learning in this first chapter how to establish edifying conversations and uplifting meditations at home. Because we go to churches, to temples, to spiritual centers. But in our homes, we think it's hectic. We do whatever we like. Well, our essence is divine. Why not cherishing that divine in our home? So that's why in this chapter today, we're invited to really bring these uplifting conversations, these God-centered conversations at home. There's so much to learn and to study about nature, about creation as a whole, about life from an angle that is more uplifting, edifying. That's the invitation of the Master for us. Andrea Torres is saying, this is why we do not have affinity with a family member who lives with us for 7 months. I was relieved when she went away. Yeah, okay, Andrea is mentioning this. I understand. Thank you for sharing, Andrea. We understand your feelings. And in our home, we can establish it. I know it's hard, but a rule of thumb, okay? If it's your home, you dictate the rules, not the ones who are visiting you. I know people who say, I don't drink alcohol, but my friends do, so I have alcoholic beverage in my house. But whose house is this? Yours? They're visiting you. It's your rules. They're gonna drink water, juice, tea, I don't know. But if you don't drink, it doesn't make sense that you just do this, especially because it's not beneficial to them. Second for us, the rules of the conversation. You don't need to go there and say, stop talking about this. But like Jesus, you can just move the conversation to another direction, a little bit less heavy. So this is the proposal for us. In the next 24 hours, we're being invited by Jesus to bring that sense of God-centered life to our homes. It's not enough to go to the Spiritual Center. It's not enough to go to a church or to a temple. I need to bring that beautiful, healthy dynamic, a God-centered dynamic at home, and produce uplifting, edifying conversations while in the home. That's it. As simple as that. Right, Daisy? Right, Marcia? Justina Martiri? Yes. So now, we invite you for a prayer. Why we're going to pray? Why not? If prayer is a communication with God, why not pray? We're going to pray together, and you're invited to join us. You may close your eyes or not, but feel it. Let's open our hearts and visualize that smile of Jesus, his firm and loving look, his pauses, his serenity, his kind approach. Shall we, friends, and calibrate our hearts, strengthen ourselves Oh, Master Jesus, it is a joy to listen to you, to feel you. We know that many people don't understand yet this relationship with you, but you are not worried about it, neither are we. And we thank you for the opportunity of learning and the invitation for serving more and loving even more. May everyone who is in need of your healing sacred heart feel your presence, your loving embrace, your kind smile, your firm look, and your sweet and kind invitation for us so we can build that peaceful, harmonious, and loving environment at home. In gratitude to the spirit author of the book Jesus in the Home, Neio Lucio, and the wonderful medium Chico Xavier, we wrap up these moments of reflection and true therapy for our souls in gratitude to you and God, and so be it. Right, Sosos is saying it right. When we do the God at home, the gospel at home, it brings light to our souls. I agree with you. And you know, every Saturday at 6 p.m., Kara Correa is leading us into sessions as well. The God at Home, studying the book, The Spirit's Book by Kardec. A big hug to you, friends. And until tomorrow, we made it, God willing. Stories by the Master here at Kardec Radio. A big hug.